everybody, and welcome to this episode of Harvey County Talk. I am your host, Lance Gormley. Our guest on the program today is Val Gleason, who is the president and CEO of NMC Health. How are you doing today, Val?
Doing very well. Thanks, Lance.
Very good. I really appreciate you coming out on the program.
You're welcome.
Yeah. As anybody knows who's watched the program, we've endeavored to interview somebody, a leader, a president, past president, or somehow directly connected, associated, and member of the different civic organizations within the community. And we have four major ones. We have Kiwanis, we have the Freemasons, we have Rotary, and then we have the Lions Club. And so far, I've got 2 out of the 4, and I was really excited about interviewing a Rotarian, and you got the job.
Great, outstanding. I'm happy to do it.
Well, it's kind of funny because, when we endeavored to do this, I thought, well, I'm going to get the presidents of each of these organizations. And not everybody's so camera friendly as I like to be or other people like to be. And so with that, we've kind of adjusted and just allowed for those organizations to pick people that they think are exceptional members of their club and have done great and amazing things and just really can do a good job of letting everybody in the community know, well, what is your organization about? What are some of the things you do and why you're a part? So you're a Rotarian.
I am.
Rotarian. How long have you been? Well, before we get into that, we've got to get a little backstory on you. Okay, so how'd you find yourself in Newton? Are you a Newton native? Were you born and raised? Or how did you find yourself in Newton, Kansas, America?
Grew up on a small farm, northeastern Ohio, out in Portage County, and moved to Kansas in 1978. My first husband wanted to be close to the aircraft industry. So if you want to be close to aircraft, where do you go? Wichita. Yes. So I worked in Wichita as a nurse and a hospital administrator for a number of years before I found my way to NMC, then NMC, Newton Medical Center.
Okay. And when was that? What year was that?
2004.
2004. So that's been, that's a long time.
That's going
that you've been at the helm of that organization.
Little over 19 years. I worked for a previous CEO, the indomitable Steve Kelly.
Okay, very cool.
And when Steve retired, I was lucky enough to step into his job.
Amazing.
It's been a great ride. So I've done this since 2016.
What, I guess I always ask, how do people find their way into wanting to be a part of a civic organization in general? I mean, did you just want to find a way to plug in or get involved, or how did you find your way at the doorstep of Rotary, or how did Rotary find you? Yeah.
Well, I've known about Rotary for a long time. Both my brother and sister were Rotarians in northeastern Ohio. They both owned businesses. And they had a blast in the Stowe Rotary Club outside of Akron. And my sister took foreign exchange students from Finland for a number of years through the Rotary Youth Exchange. And so we've got family in Finland now, a couple generations since the time that those kids were here. They're now grown up and have children of their own. And one girl from the Netherlands. And so it was always fun to hear about their Rotary service and service to others and their gifts. And I thought, when I'm in a position where I can, I'll join up with a Rotary Club. And it happened to be here in Newton.
So you already had it on your mind from previous experience.
Yes, but it's good to serve.
Yeah.
You know, it's this isn't the first rodeo I've had in public service and private civic service, and of course with my church. And so it's better to be a giver than a taker, in my opinion, and Rotary's a great way to give.
So you mentioned Youth Rotary Exchange as being one of the things that attracted you to Rotary. So can you explain a little bit about what that is, maybe for the audience that doesn't know?
My sister was involved in taking high school students into her home through the Stowe Rotary Club. So I think they must send 40 or 45 students each way, each year. And my sister is a very tall, blonde-headed, blue-eyed, fair-skinned individual. And so she said, I'll take the students from Finland because they will look like me and I will look like them, and maybe they'll be more comfortable and not so homesick.
Right, yeah.
And so she would have youth in her home for a year at a time. and getting to know them. And in the intervening years, what's happened is, as those students have gone back to Finland, they've remained very good friends with my sister. And as a matter of fact, parents of those students have come here. So oftentimes flying into Toronto. So she'd drive from the Akron-Cleveland area to Toronto to pick them up at the airport and then take them back to Ohio.
Yeah.
So it was always fun. The kids became a member of our family in the years that they were here.
Yeah, and that would be an amazing experience for a youth, I would think, given the fact that you're in another country, want to have come to the United States, but this is an exchange, right? So that means for everyone that comes here from out of country, then there's a Rotarian youth, basically, or someone being sponsored through Rotary to go to their country too.
Correct.
So that's a two-way street.
Yeah, it's a two-way
I wonder what
street.
some of the stories those people would tell.
Yeah.
It's always interesting. I wonder, like a culture shock of sorts.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm
very
sure.
cool.
It was real interesting that when the parents of her first exchange student came, they couldn't understand why Americans needed cars.
Very cool.
And so just the trip from Toronto back to Akron,
Yeah.
Stowe area, that was a long trip.
Yeah.
And then getting any place in the cities, they soon understood you can't just walk to the market and walk to every place that you need.
Yeah.
Americans need cars.
Yeah.
So they were convinced.
We're spread out.
Yes, that's right.
So, as far as like, if I were to be somebody that's interested in Rotary, and I'm hearing about, from you that this is a civic organization that somebody should at least look at if they're wanting to get involved, what can I expect at a typical Rotary meeting? Like, if I show up to go, can I just go? Do you have to be invited? How does that work, Val?
I was invited.
Okay.
I found somebody that I knew was in Rotary and asked if I could come. And so they took me as their guest. But I think if you showed up at a Rotary meeting and said, I'm interested and I'd like to get to know what happens here,
Yeah.
you'd be invited in with open arms.
Absolutely.
You'd be welcomed
Yeah.
on the spot. And we'd hand you a membership application the very first night.
Yeah. So you can either show up if you hear about a Rotary meeting taking place, if you see them on Facebook or something like that, you can
Right.
maybe reach out to them, but you're taking everybody all together indiscriminately.
Sure.
So if you don't know a Rotarian and you maybe are listening to this right now, you can even comment in the link below or something to be able to ask how to reach out and get a hold of Rotary, right?
Absolutely.
So what kind of things do you do there? Like, if I show up, and what am I doing? What can I expect?
Well, the first part of the meeting is gathering,
Okay.
mingling, getting to be with your friends, your Rotarian friends, and just a very informal setting. And then, of course, there's an opening meal. We all have to break bread together because things go better over food.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
So we always have dinner together.
Right.
And it's very nice. And I might add, for the ladies out there, it's wonderful because there's always a little extra food. So you can pay for it and take it home, and you don't have to cook dinner that night.
I love it. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Nobody's going to tell you can't do that.
I love Rotary meetings.
Because I get a meal and I
And
don't
a
have
take
to worry.
home. And I don't have to cook.
I love it.
But we gather, we have a meal together, and then there's a short business meeting. The officers meet earlier in the day, and they're planning the events and the vision, for the Rotarians. Our service projects, where we need to show up in the community at what time, and those types of things. So very short business meeting. And then there's somehow the most wonderful speakers. Every Rotary meeting, there is a speaker. And whether that's a local focus or an international focus, you hear things that you wouldn't expect to hear. And it's always a learning experience. It's mind-opening and often mind-boggling. And then we close with our 4-way Rotary test at the end of the evening and dismiss until for the next 2 weeks. I will say, too, at the beginning of the meeting, it's very nice. We stand up, we say the Pledge of Allegiance together, we remember our country that provides us with so much. and that we're so grateful for. A lot of our international Rotarians don't have what we have.
Yeah, we have a wonderful country.
We do.
A very, very good country that supports civic organizations for certain, and doing good for others across the globe and in our communities. So these special speakers that are there, can you give me one, just maybe one that was overly memorable, or one that just moved you or impacted you?
Well, there have been several, but recently, one spoke about his native country of the Ukraine and the impact on not only his entire country, but his town where he is from, and the people that he knows who are there and struggling in the midst of war. And it definitely brought that front and center and set it on the table in front of all of us to say human suffering is something that we all need to be aware of, no matter what our political persuasion is or who we happen to agree with that's prevailing in a war. Rotarians are concerned with humans and human suffering, and he certainly did bring that to the forefront and appealed to a lot of us in that way. It was a fascinating talk. Another one that sticks in my mind is a talk from a Kansas highway patrolman who's done a tremendous amount of work in intercepting drug trafficking that goes on the Kansas highways. So if you're not somebody who runs close to those circles of law enforcement, it was a fascinating topic to hear. And I was glad that was brought forward. And then we even heard a travel log one evening from one of our own Rotarians that had done some international travel for pleasure, but to see his travel slides and to see part of the world that maybe some of us will never visit, the Antarctic, was fascinating as well. So it opens your mind on a number of levels.
So when if I were to show up to a Rotary meeting, I could expect fraternity, right, with everybody, and then I could eat a good meal on top of that and enjoy company with others. And then from there, and this is something that happens every Rotary meeting, they have a special speaker of some kind, right?
Right.
Because I remember, it's interesting that you say what you said about one of the speakers that was memorable to you, because when I was adding questions and whatnot, I've been to Rotary, right, and seen special speakers and stuff, and that was probably the most memorable one for me, was the one you mentioned about the state trooper, because you just wouldn't think in Kansas that we would deal with some of the stuff that we did. And he even told a very moving story about, and I'll recall this for us, but, he rescued a little girl that was being trafficked who couldn't even communicate that that's what was transpiring. And I believe God put him in the right place at the right time, and he was able to rescue that young girl. And you just don't think about that. And they're on the front lines of that all the time,
right,
for us, you know?
And he brought it so close to home and to our collective consciousness. It was a fascinating story to hear. I agree with you.
What are some of the other things that Rotary does locally? I know that I've heard about some dictionaries things that I know we'd have Rod on the program before, Rod Cry, and I think he's a past president as well of the Newton Club, and he always takes an opportunity to root for Rotary, and in line with that, just what are some of the things that you can do locally?
Absolutely. I'm impressed with Rotary's community philanthropy. They're interested in donating funds that they raise for the good of the local Newton community. So that's one thing, an outright use of money, hard cash. Because cash speaks, doesn't it?
It does.
Cash
Gets
is
things
king.
done.
Yes, it does. And I think Rotarians are great at visibility. Like many of those in our civic clubs around Newton, and Rotary's no different. You'll see Rotarians out passing out Halloween candy on the main street to our community's children. There's a presence in the Harvey County Fair Parade, as an example. You'll see the Rotary float, as you will at the Christmas Parade of Lights, which is at this time of year upcoming, but you'll see a lot of Rotarians there. So visibility of the club. And then, one of the biggest fundraisers that we do besides the golf tournament are the peach sales. So every year, Rotarians take orders for the Colorado peaches, provided there's not a frost and a destruction of crops that year. But they come in last part of August, and the proceeds of those sales go to buy dictionaries for third graders. A dictionary that they own. It's theirs to keep forever. It's got beautiful pictures in it, hardback, and they get to write their names in it. It's a book that you're allowed to write in, and it belongs to me for the rest of my life. And it's a worthy cause. We're very, very concerned about literacy, childhood literacy, adult literacy. It starts with being able to dissect the English language, and what better way than through a third grade pictorial dictionary.
Awesome. And how do you know how long Rotary has been doing that? Has it been for decades, hasn't it?
It's been a long time, because we often get into the third grade classrooms, and many of them will say, my older brother and sister still have their dictionaries. And some of those kids are in high school. So this is something that's been done for a very long time.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool thing that Rotary does in the community. I know on an international level, they do some other things. I know a big initiative that many people can associate with Rotary is helping with the eradication of polio.
Rotary, I wrote down some data today, has 1.4 million members, and 47 million volunteer hours are contributed by those 1.4 million members annually.
Wow.
Isn't that an amazing statistic?
That's amazing.
And Rotarians donate about 300 million plus in global service projects.
Wow.
And some of those projects are one that caught my eye was done in the United States. In Bowling Green, Kentucky, a tornado had gone through and decimated a African American museum there. And so some Rotarians have actually committed to helping the museum restore itself. They've learned how to archive pieces, including textiles and photographs, and so they're helping the museum get back on its feet and reopen its displays.
Wow.
What a commitment. To go learn a brand new skill that you don't have in order to serve the community.
Yeah. Awesome.
A second one, in Sri Lanka, the country of Sri Lanka, there was a tidal wave. Sea turtle eggs were displaced, and so the Rotarians went in and rescued 350 sea turtle eggs and relocated them to a place where they could be safely hatched.
Wow.
That's an amazing thing to me.
That's very eccentric, but very interesting.
It is. It is.
Very cool.
So the Rotarians provide clean water and sewage removal in a lot of countries around the world. People that are still carrying water in buckets, now have clean water in their own towns, thanks to the work of Rotarians.
So Rotary, not to stop you, but Rotary goes out internationally and finds communities that don't have water resources readily available, and then drills wells?
Helps them drill wells.
That's insane. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And this is a global initiative?
Yes, it is.
Just to provide clean drinking water to people that don't have it.
Part of that $300 million that's raised every year goes to that.
For no other purpose but to provide clean drinking water to people that don't have it.
To help people.
Yeah.
And to remove their sewage away from their drinking water.
Yeah.
It's something that we often take for granted in the United States. You don't think about raw sewage running down your streets unless there's a disaster of some kind, not on a day-to-day basis. So we're very lucky here.
Yeah.
And some of the blessings that we have here in this country, Rotary tries to provide elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then I agree with you. My favorite Rotary international project is ending world polio. So polio is still endemic in only 2 countries in the world, Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we're close. We are so close. There are many people alive today who do not understand the ravages of the polio epidemic that swept through the world in the 40s and 50s. Many Americans were affected by polio, and many Americans who are older and survived polio in childhood and now are in their 70s and 80s and 90s suffer from what's called tertiary polio. It comes back, almost like you get chicken pox as a child and shingles as an adult.
Yeah.
Well, this polio goes dormant, and then in the older age it comes back again, and people have the effects of it. So it's fantastic to think that the billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, Rotarians have invested in eliminating wild polio in the world has confined it now with the help of, others in the world. But Rotarians have played a prominent role in this, in just confining it now to 2 countries. There's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope that someday we won't have it ever again.
Well, it's interesting that you picked that one, Val. Just given your occupation and what you do, I know that your heart is to help and heal, right? Or provide an avenue in which healing can take place on a personal level with your own occupation. And it's interesting how that just rolls over into Rotary.
Right.
Right?
Right. It's been a great fit for me. Not that the other civic organizations aren't great. They do wonderful things, but I really connected with Rotary on a number of levels because of their health interests.
Yeah, very good. What would you tell somebody of why you would come to Rotary, as opposed to not saying anything about any other organization? But if I was, if I were to talk to you, I know you would tell me get involved in a civic organization, come see mine. But if you want to be involved in another one, that's great. Why would you recommend that I choose Rotary?
What I would say is I'd inspire somebody to come and share the impact of our actions with us. And that could be shared in any civic club. But with Rotary, the impact that I love is going into the 3rd grade classrooms with my fellow Rotarians and looking at the children in the eye when we hand them a brand new dictionary. And it smells good like a bookstore, and it's so wonderful. And to see the looks on the children's faces, that moment makes it all worthwhile for me. That's a great reason to connect with Rotary, because we sell peaches to take care of little children so that they can read. Right,
and the best peaches you're going to get around here for certain.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I buy a couple boxes myself. So we've covered a lot about Rotary, and I know we talked a little bit about you, Val, but I'm going to do something with you that obviously I haven't done with anybody else of the civic organizations come out here and whatnot, because I kind of have a personal account to tell with you, and I just hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot by doing this. But I think you can tell a lot about a civic organization by the people who are there to represent it. And I believe that when you look at a civic organization on whether you want to be a part of it, it's good to look at the people that are there and what they do, and maybe even before talking to them, just kind of see what they're about. It's interesting to me, and I would say that it's interesting that those initiatives that have to do with health are some of the reasons that you vocalized, and it just takes me back to what you do and who you are. And I would just like to say, in my own personal experience, I really appreciate what you've done with NMC. I know you had big shoes to fill with Kelly, and I believe that both of you are exceptional people that have done just a tremendously good job of taking care of everybody that comes to NMC. And that comes from the top. And you can tell a lot about an organization with the people that are servicing you, the receptionists, the nurses, the doctors, the facility, and you're responsible for that. And in my life, I've had 3 children at NMC, and all of them have went off perfectly fine. I've been blessed to have the services there at the birthing unit. I've encouraged people personally who were looking for places to have their baby, that if they're from Wichita or even a surrounding area, that you can come here and you're going to get top quality service, and you're going to be respected, and you're going to be protected, and you're just going to have the experience that people are looking to have when they're having their baby. Also, I'd just like to say, Val, in a way, you kind of saved my life. And I haven't had the opportunity to tell you this directly, but I've been able to tell everybody that had anything to do with me and my situation that I had about 6 years ago. I suffered a medical condition that was immediate, and I needed immediate assistance. And I don't even remember any of it. I was taken to NMC emergency room, where I was greeted by the receptionist, who treated me, from what I don't know, what I was told, very well. They got me the care that I needed immediately, and in that situation, I needed to get out of there to go somewhere else, okay? Which led, in my own personal life, to something much greater, and I take it back. You know, I've been able to go and thank the firefighters and EMS who were responsible for transporting me. I've been able to thank everybody down the line, but I haven't been able to thank you quite yet. And so I wanted to use this opportunity to just say, Val, I really appreciate everything you've done with NMC. I really appreciate how you invest in the community through your organization. I don't know if you get told this enough. I hope you do. When it comes to NMC, that's where I go. I want people in my community to go there first, because I know that you care about everybody that's there, but also about building our community. And, thank you for providing an environment and an atmosphere at NMC that was able to be there to provide the resources that I needed in the moment that I needed, and it saved my life.
Well,
I appreciate
wonderful. It's we tell ourselves at the hospital, we're all for one. So in that moment, we were all for one, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
and
were.
I'm delighted to hear your story, and I will share your story with the staff. Blinded, of course, to not reveal your identity, but every week, I send out an email to all of our staff, and we're looking for reasons to find people among us who have done the big things and the small things through the week. And there's a part of that that's called grateful patience. And so when people in the community talk to me about their experiences, every Friday the staff hears about that. And your story is compelling. I'm glad we saved your life. And I'm glad we're here today.
Yeah.
We're able to talk about something that's really meaningful in our community. And I can see you're a little bit overwhelmed in the moment.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. It's taking me back to that moment.
Yeah.
It's just understanding the executive aspect of it is that so goes the head, so goes the body. And I truly believe if there was not a culture of care that's been established through your leadership in that facility, that it would have bled through down to whether I needed care or not in that moment. And it was a matter of seconds.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that, and delighted to be sitting here with you today. But let me say this, Lance, that I can't take credit. The staff there, most of our staff understand what they're called to do in life, and they found their places with us. And I'm so proud of our hospital, and I'm proud of the people who work there because they care very deeply about what they do. It comes from a long tradition. The hospital is 136 years old. And we stand on the shoulders of all of our predecessor physicians and staff who, through these 136 years of legacy, have built something here that they could have only dreamed of this 136 years ago. In fact, they probably couldn't even have dreamed of it. Some of the modern equipment and the things that we have, the intelligence of the people who work there today, their level of education, their college expertise, the reading that they do, and the studying in their off hours to keep themselves current and really relevant to today's healthcare. We're not big, but we're mighty. And everyone who works with us is a specialist standing on the shoulders of a specialist who came before them and the specialist who came before them. And so it's 136 years of legacy building. And that's something that we don't take for granted. Today we work hard because we're called to do this work, No one else can do this work. We have to step up and do it when it needs to be done. But we realized we didn't get here on our own. We inherited a beautiful organization, every one of us that works there today. So from my predecessor, Steve Kelly, he inherited a beautiful organization from his predecessor, Chuck Waters, who really was the founding CEO of Newton Medical Center from the two predecessor hospitals. And so it's something that we don't take for granted, that history, because it's taken a lot of blood and sweat and tears and toil to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
And it's a legacy that we never want to tarnish. And I would never want to disappoint anybody with the care that we provide at our hospital. I'm like you. I believe it's stellar. And it's the great people that care about it and show up and do their jobs and do them well.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of our staff.
In the face of any adversity.
Absolutely.
In the face of any adversity.
Absolutely. They're ready for anything. We have a great staff where the hospital is constantly changing to meet the needs of the community. We extend our hand to 350 young people every year that are trying to find their way into healthcare sciences. So we're influencing and teaching directly 350 budding, aspirational future healthcare workers.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of us. We're in the schools, probably reaching another 350 to 400 students. It's something that we do, and we do well.
Yeah.
And makes me proud of what we are today.
Yeah. And it's just interesting to me how when you focus in on a civic organization such as Rotary or any of these civic organizations of people that I've interviewed, and I'm also involved in civic organizations, right? But it almost takes a certain kind of person, and the person it takes is somebody that just wants to get involved. And then from there's just so many great things that you're able to accomplish together as a team, as a group, as a club. And there's a parallel that I'm having here, Val, and it's that you do this in your personal life, you do this in your occupation, and then you reach out and focus on Rotary, right?
Right.
So there's a parallel with all of those, which is that you're just a pretty giving person. I mean, I want to sort of say it's like you have the attitude and the aptitude to want to serve others and those that are the most in need. And that's what you do in your job, but it's also, or your occupation, your career, because it's way more than a job. But the realization that you also do it in service with Rotary. So it's almost like looking at our conversation, I can say, well, it's no wonder somebody like you's involved in the civic organization, Val.
Well, I've been given a lot in life. I was a fortunate child. I had great parents. They role modeled things to us. I was lucky enough to have great grandparents into my 20s, well into my 20s. I had 4 grandparents. I had 2 parents. And that lived at a time I was growing up. They were very influential, but they gave and they paid things forward. And when you're a small child and that's role model to you, it's something that becomes part of your own makeup. You realize that you didn't get in life where you were all by yourself. Lots of people gave you a hand up along the way, and we often use the phrase, right, pay it forward.
Yeah.
But we ought to pay it forward, because that keeps a society and a culture very strong. It strengthens the strong, so that the strong, together can help the people who aren't as strong. That's a role in society we should all take and be interested in, and that's one of the things I think Rotary helps us do. I really love it during our meetings. Rotary closes the meeting with its 4-way test. So all the Rotarians stand up and they recite it together. You know, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And those tenets are good tenets of our organization, but they certainly help us take the light of Rotary out into the world. And I find myself referring to the Rotary four-way test when I have to sit at my desk and make decisions. You know, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it be beneficial? It's amazing how many times that you can use that club's credo in what you're doing in everyday life. It's very meaningful.
Yeah, it is. Well, Val, we're coming to the end of the program. And as anybody knows who watches the program, you have an opportunity to speak directly to the hearts and minds of all those people listening right now. And here's your chance to tell everybody exactly what's on your mind and heart, Val.
I would just say, if you're going to be a member of society, participate and get out and pay it forward. So whatever club you want to belong to, whether that's church or a civic organization or another volunteer opportunity, get busy and just do it. That's what I would say.
Well, folks, there you have it, and thanks for listening to this episode of Harvey County Talk. I was your host, Lance Gormley, and our guest on the program today was CEO and President of NMC Health, Val Gleason, and local Rotarian. Thank you, Val.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.